And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Saturday morning's flying weather. Three areas of IFR here, one up along the central Arctic coast there, another one over the northern Bering Sea extending into the coastal areas of the Yukon Delta and into the southwest interior a little bit there, Togiak Bay, but not quite to Dillingham. And another area here along the central and western Aleutians. Eastern Aleutians up in toward Kodiak Island, marginal VFR. Some IFR possible here in the North Gulf Coast and along the eastern panhandle, otherwise marginal VFR out into the Gulf, and good VFR in the interior. And then for the afternoon, interior Alaska, really nice VFR conditions, some marginal VFR left over the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound area. Also up here for the north slope to the Arctic coast and into the central Brooks Range there. Otherwise, northern Bering Sea, an area of IFR now, kind of shrinking from what it was earlier on. So marginal VFR for St. Lawrence Island, Nunivak Island, and probably the Pribilofs as well. And a little bit of IFR left on the south side of the Alaska Peninsula and the Aleutians, mostly marginal. For the morning hour Sunday, IFR here, north slope, western Arctic coast, and a little more IFR here over the northern and northeast Bering Sea to about western Nunivak Island, sliding on up into Togiak Bay again. Narrow band along the western Alaska Range and along the southern Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak. Otherwise, Alaska Peninsula here, all the way out to Attu Island, marginal VFR. And for the Gulf of Alaska, marginal VFR. Marginal VFR, some IFR over the Panhandle as well as the North Gulf Coast. And for the afternoon, we've got scattered areas of IFR here along the North Gulf Coast, western Prince William Sound, Whittier, maybe Portage down into the eastern Kenai Peninsula, possibly Resurrection Bay, and otherwise swath of VFR here through Cook Inlet, western Kenai Peninsula, suggesting southeast wind flow there with VFR, then back to the marginal VFR as it hits the upslope areas of the western Alaska Range. The interior, good VFR, north slope, Arctic coast, marginal, panhandle, pretty marginal with possibly some areas of VFR. And the Bering Sea, not too bad, a little bit of IFR here around St. Matthew Island. Otherwise, marginal VFR, some areas of VFR breaking out there. And moving on to the passes, up north, Brooks Range, Anatuvik-Anatigan, kind of a marginal VFR day coming up there for Saturday. Starting the week out pretty good, or the weekend out nicely here for the Western Alaska Range, Lake Clark, Merrill, rainy, all should be VFR tomorrow, as well as windy. Isabel, VFR, Mintesta, VFR, Tanita looking good as well, VFR flying, and Portage staying on the marginal side there, especially on the eastern entrance. And for Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR. Freezing levels here, 2,000 feet in the central interior, the east side closer to 4,000 feet there. Otherwise, not much change here, around 2,000 feet, give or take here across much of the forecast area, all the way down to the Panhandle and out to the west here, sliding up to maybe 6,000 feet around the far western Aleutians. And for icing, system out here to the west, it's been dropping southward here. A little bit of an increase in the icing there, mostly staying west of St. Lawrence Island. And then the big system coming up from the south, spreading considerable moderate rime icing northward into the southeast Bering Sea, Unalaska Island, in across the Alaska Peninsula. And then some possible mixed icing here in the shaded areas over the interior and the north central areas extending out to the Arctic coast. And still a chance of some, again, mixed icing, shower activity type icing there across the southeast coast, but all diminishing. And for the jet stream here, drier northwest flow spreading into the southeast coast instead of that persistent southwest flow you've had. And higher pressure here at jet stream level over Norton Sound. Light northwest winds on the north side of that center. Out to the west, couple of lows here. This one that came down currently, kind of hanging up here over the northern Bering Sea as this one comes northward. 80 to 90 knot winds coming into the eastern Aleutians there, western Alaska Peninsula. Really strong winds behind this one out of the north up to 100, 110 knots. And at 9,000 feet here, we've got south to north flow over the eastern Bering Sea and north to south flow over the western areas there. lighter over the interior, but westerlies at about 40 knots with this disturbance up here crossing the eastern Arctic Ocean there, kicking the winds up for the Arctic coast on down into the northeast interior here. Pretty light though for the Panhandle. And 3,000 feet, light variable winds, southeast coast into the Gulf, northward into the interior here, back to the northwest coast. Westerlies up to 45 knots at 3,000 feet there for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. And for the Alaska Peninsula, this strong low coming northward toward Nikolsky and Unmak Island. South winds up to 55 knots there, reaching the Alaska Peninsula. In an area of south winds, 45 knots across the eastern Bering Sea. North at 40 there for the western Bering. Moving on to turbulence with those strong winds coming in. Look for considerable moderate turbulence here for the Alaska Peninsula out to around Unalaska Dutch Harbor area, with light to isolated moderate southwest coast, Bristol Bay up to St. Lawrence Island. And also for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast with those winds, especially on the east side here, look for isolated moderate turbulence up that way. And then maybe in the afternoon with some southerly winds increasing there around Lynn Canal, that could create an area of isolated moderate turbulence, especially for small aircraft.